Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben, and today we're taking a look at the High Republic Tempest Runner. Let's find out if this audio drama offers some rousing action that no fan should be without, or if it's just a fetch quest that you completely forget. Stay tuned and find out next. Where should I start reading? What is canon versus legends? When does the story begin? The answers to these questions is right here on Star Wars Timeline. Tempest Runner is a fully voice-acted audio drama which is a part of the publishing campaign called The High Republic. We're still in Phase 1 called The Light of the Jedi. This book was published on August 31st, 2021. It is written by Cavan Scott with cover illustration with Katerina Balikova. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I always enjoy holding my books when I review them to talk about the artwork and to show you guys, to highlight the artist. In case of this audiobook, I'll just pop the artwork on screen so you could check it out. I really enjoyed this cover, obviously fleshing out the main hero of the story, and it felt like a chapter ripped straight from the Rising Storm book, which is a previous High Republic adult novel. This book takes place in the canonical Star Wars timeline, which takes place 231 years before Battle of Yavin, or before Episode 4. So obviously we're hundreds of years even before the Star Wars prequels. Now, next, let's talk about very briefly the story overview. Spoilers alert. This is a very general overview of the plot because it's quite intricate. There's a lot of moving parts and characters. I'll just give you a brief synopsis of it and go straight into my opinion of this book and give it my final score. Even if you don't want to hear anything about the plot of this book, just skip forward to my impression, which I'll timestamp in this video. You have been warned, so let's take a look briefly at what takes place in this book. We are in the aftermath of The Rising Storm, an adult novel which came out before, which dealt with a Nihil attack on the Republic there. It's a cultural exchange where the Republic Senator Lina Saw is inviting other planet representatives and leaders to have a cultural exchange and talk about why it's good to be a member of the Republic. And there are these space marauders, these pirates called the Nihil, who are attacking this innocent event. Lourna Dee is a Twi'lek who is a part of this Nihil storm, like a pretty high rank among these pirates, and she's attacking the fair. So as a result of that previous story, The Rising Storm, Lourna Dee and some of her Nihil cohorts are being apprehended, and they're sent into this correctional ship/facility called Restitution to pay her for her crimes and try to amend and, repair the damage that she has caused to all of these innocent lives lost and so on. And she's almost given like a fresh start that, the Republic believes that everybody should be given a second chance. From this point forward, we're dealing with two timelines. We're dealing with Lourna Dee serving her sentence in present, and then there are flashbacks going back to the time when Lourna Dee is a very young woman and she's part of this royal Twi'lek family. And we see the fall of her royal house because as an idealist, she falls for this guy, and together they have this scheme to liberate their planet, and she wants to be this freedom fighter, which causes more pain and suffering, and her planet being dominated by another royal house, and her family perishes in the aftermath of that. And we also are in the present where Lourna Dee now, she completely fakes her identity. She gives herself a different name, and she starts making connections with all the sorts of different characters on the ship Restitution, also trying to find her way, and she's undecided how to proceed about her future, where to really believe and throw her lot with this new Republic or be what she always aspired to be, independent pirate, completely just a lawless character. And her friendship revolves around several key characters, including the Councilor Whittick and a young woman called Seston. We see a lot of familiar cast from previous High Republic novels, like Keith Trennis, a young Padawan turned Jedi, her master Skier, a Trandoshan Jedi, and also Master Avar Kriss. There's a bunch of dramatic events that take place both in the past and in the present, coming to a very climatic finale, and Lourna Dee emerging as her own Tempest Runner. That's why I guess the name of the book. She becomes fully realized, a cocoon, spreading her wings, becoming this butterfly of these evil Nihil. Anyway, that's a very general description of the plot. It's quite intricate. I believe it's the book, audiobook is over 4 hours long, so it took me quite a while to cover all of it. So you have the story in the gist here. Let's go to my personal impression of this book, and at the end, I will give it a final score. First and foremost, what I really enjoyed about the story is a sense of odyssey. It's a story of self-discovery, betrayal, and heartbreak. There's a lot of emotional keynotes happening here, you know, when you see Lourna Dee as her more innocent younger self, and also as in the present. She's not this, you know, typical cardboard villain who is always just hell-bent on causing as much suffering and damage as possible. There's also a very human side to her. You know, there's a vulnerable side. You begin to understand what makes her mind work, you know, why she is making these certain decisions, and why she believes that, you know, being the Tempest Runner Nihil is so liberating to her, and that's something that she wants to pursue. Once again, I wanted to reiterate that I really enjoyed that it's not just Lourna Dee there being our main star. There's a very memorable cast of characters returning and also new ones, and they all play an integral part in her development as a character. Every person that she interacts with in the story help us understand her better. You know, where she's coming from her innocent side and her humanized part, where she strives to relate to people and at least somebody to share with and try to understand her, which I felt was quite touching. And it almost paints a portrait of, let's say you're watching a movie Joker. You don't just see the outward appearance and the villainy and obviously all the terrible things that he does, but you also see the inner world of that person. And there's a lot of sympathy for the Joker, and also for Lourna Dee in this case, which is an interesting parallel. I didn't make it when I was reading the book, but now as I'm talking about it, that's what I'm kind of thinking about it. She's this sort of a Joker type of villain, and it's the entire book is a portrait of that character. I gotta say, the book is flawlessly produced. It has absolutely brilliant voice work. It has amazing sound design, including music and all the special effects that really puts you in that world. And I gotta highlight specifically Jessica Almsey, who plays Lourna Dee, right, the lead character, and Mark Thompson, who plays several characters. He plays Pan Eta, who we also discover from the previous books. We hear Master Skier, the Trandoshan lizard Jedi, and Marcion Rowe. Master Skier especially was so wonderful to hear, because Mark gives these special attributes to like making it sounding lizard-like, and he has this really interesting lisp. Oh man, I couldn't wait to hear more of him. Unfortunately, his role is kind of small in this book, but I'm hoping if they do future High Republic audio dramas, they would get Mark come back and reprise his role as Master Skier. That was just wonderful to hear. It came out of nowhere. I didn't expect that character to be in this book. It was just a really cool added bonus. I have to say once again that listening to this book was very immersive. And, you know, when you have music and audio effects and characters, voice actors, and really powerful story working together and concept really well, it creates something very emotional and memorable scenes. You're listening to audiobook. There's no visuals provided for you, but it's so well structured and so well paced that, you know, I was actually putting my headphones and I put it in my MP3 player, and I walked around this really cool park that we have here in New York City, in northern part of Manhattan, called the Fort Washington Park. So I'm walking around it and I'm putting my headphones on, and I do it in the evenings when, you know, when the sun is setting, where it's completely dark now that we're in the winter. And it just puts you in this really interesting mood. And at a point, I was forgetting where I am. You know, you're just on autopilot. You're walking, you're making rounds around the park, but now you're also living in this High Republic world. Really, really special. I got to give the credit to everyone who was involved in designing this book. I imagine it's the hardest thing to do. It might seem simple on the surface, like, well, yes, you know, you're going to have some audio effects, there's special cues, and voice actors, so obviously you're going to relate to it more than text when reading a book. With me, it's actually in reverse. For me, it's much more convenient reading a book, because I could reread a paragraph, you know, I could kind of like try to stop, pause for a second, and try to situate myself and say, okay, this is what this particular action is in this flight sequence or something, right? Or when somebody's describing a certain exotic planet or alien species that is not on Wikipedia, I can't find out what it looks like. I can still pause for a second and think about it and then move on. With audiobook, it's quite different. You got to keep with the pace of the book, and you got to listen to it and be in the moment. So it's quite a different experience. All in all, I would say the book was immaculate. I tremendously enjoyed. There's only one nitpick that I'd like to mention, and I suspect it has to do more with myself and my experience with audiobooks, which I generally don't prefer. I always enjoy reading books first, and unless it's the book that I'm trying to check out is completely unavailable in a novel format, or is scheduled to release like half a year later after the audiobook, then I will go and check out the audiobook and tell myself, you know what, just stick with it. See if you can understand what's happening, if you're enjoying it. So the case with the Tempest Runner was that I felt that the format was a little bit disorienting for me. First of all, you have an ensemble of different characters. Some of them are in the past, some of them are in the present, and to understand the flow of what's happening, it wasn't as hard understanding where you are in the timeline, but obviously, like after 2 or 3 hours, there's a lot of names to remember. And I started getting a little bit frustrated. Like, oh man, what character is this once again? Oh, that's right. That's a counselor. Or who's this woman? Oh, right. She's a hacker, but she was also in the ship with Lourna Dee, but she's also a Nihil. Okay, I understand. So it took me a little bit to untangle this little web and understand the full scope, the full picture of this novel. So once again, I think it's not something that I can fault the book for. It's actually me. It was a little bit confusing because I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks. But all in all, I would say this was a pretty flawless experience. I had so much fun with it. Yes, it was smaller on the scale compared to the previous High Republic adult novels, because obviously those are books that are supposed to be more epic in scope. They don't just focus on one character. They have a huge cast of Jedi and villains, and obviously the scale of conflicts are much, much larger. Here, this book is a character study of one main character and her micro odyssey, her micro adventure, and we see how she comes to pass and become this, the Tempest Runner. Really enjoyed. If I were to give this book a score, honestly, even including my small nitpick, 4 out of 4. It's just phenomenal. It's really, really good. I enjoyed it so much, and it actually was the first book that fully sold me on listening to Star Wars audiobooks. Because in the Legends period, I also listened to quite a few. I listened to one of my favorite books, Children of the Jedi, the Jedi Academy, which I constantly go back to. I like to experience that story and over again, so I listen to the audiobooks of that. And of course, the original Thrawn trilogy, which is beautifully produced back in the day. That's one audiobook I would recommend to anyone. But after listening to this one, I was completely sold, because it's something that is more than just your typical audiobook. It's a full radio drama. It's something like the original Star Wars radio dramas that we got in the early 80s. And, when you're listening to the full cast of actors performing these beloved characters that I personally grew to love through reading the High Republic, and all these sound effects and special effects, laser bolts and battle happening and the hum of the lightsaber, it's really an unforgettable and really cool experience. I would advise anybody to go run and check this book out. I'm currently actually listening to Dooku Jedi Lost, and man, that's just on a whole different level. It's just blowing my mind on a different level. I suspect I'm actually going to like that book even more than the Tempest Runner, but I'm not going to talk about it, obviously. This review is dedicated to the Tempest Runner. Anyway, you guys get the gist. I really love this book. I hope you go out and check it out, give it a chance. Lourna Dee is one Twi'lek character that I'm adding to my list of favorite Twi'leks. She's really interesting. She's very dynamic. She's distinct. And she's not this cardboard villain that, okay, she's just a bad guy, doing bad things. She's really interesting as a character. There's added layers to her. Anyway, that's my review. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing, hitting that bell button, all that YouTube stuff, that you do. It really helps me out a great deal, and I hope releasing more book reviews for you guys. I can't wait to talk about Dooku Jedi Lost when I finish it. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.